As we close 2019 and move into 2020, we talk about our favorite and most important cars and innovations of the last decade. Next on Talking Cars. Hi, and welcome back to Talking Cars. I'm Jennifer Stockberger.
I'm Mike Monticello.
And I'm Jake Fisher.
So this episode brings us to the close of 2019, and as we slide into 2020, not just
sliding on the ice
into
outside,
2020,
yeah.
which is outside.
It is wintertime.
It is wintertime. Not just the end of a year this time, but the end of a decade. And it got us all to thinking how things have changed in the automotive world in really kind of a short period of time. You know, I think out, on the track, we didn't have foam targets for, automatic emergency braking or foam pedestrians.
There's a lot of things that have changed in the automotive market. There's a lot of things that have changed here at Consumer Reports and out on our track. And like even as simple as, on the track where we've got the lines where we're simulating roadways. We didn't need that. Because now, we've seen all of these cars have all of these different features that are, trying to do stuff and anticipate when you're going out of the line, or if there's a car there and automatically hitting their brakes, or some of them we're getting to the point where they're going to be turning and avoiding things. It's really changed the way we do a lot of things here. Yeah,
it's hard to keep up. And even some of the testing has changed, too, like you were talking.
Yeah, so, even part of our one-day trip evaluation, which is basically, if people don't know what that is, that's our on-road evaluation that we do. And we've incorporated, a lane keeping assistance test. It's all for Kelly Funkhauser's database that she keeps on all of these systems. And we have a stretch of highway where we're basically evaluating, how abrupt is the steering as it steers, gives you steering assistance. How abrupt is it when it goes near a lane line and it brings you back? Does it cross? Does it hit the lane line? Does it go over the lane line? There's a whole bunch of evaluations that we do that weren't part of the one-day trip a few years ago.
We didn't need to do them a few years ago because the cars didn't exist.
I think back to that's one of the things in this decade is electronic stability control standard. 2012 and on, there's a huge history with CR.
In this decade, there were cars that didn't have it. That's right.
There's still cars that don't have it, but hopefully less. All the new cars certainly do. And I think back to what you're saying, the all ESC, when we first started testing it, was definitely not created equal. And we're seeing that with some of the AEBs and the automatic emergency braking and the lane keeping assist.
All of these advanced driver assist systems are not created equal, and that's why we have to do so much testing of them these days.
Right. The other thing I think of is I look at the bank of electric vehicle chargers.
Oh my gosh.
We didn't have those 10 years ago.
We didn't need a whole lot of that.
Right. We didn't need them. Tesla launch. That was in the past decade. Good, bad, indifferent. Certainly a game changer. Tesla.
Well, it certainly was quite a different market back there, even 10 years ago. And it's amazing how things have changed so quickly. I was looking at some of the cars that we tested in 2010. So just 10 years ago is not that long,
that's what I mean.
It's like how many cars have kind of come and gone. We tested in 2010. We had the Honda Accord Cross Tour, the Mitsubishi Lancer, the Mazda 5. Suzuki Kazashi. Yes, I pronounced it right.
You did.
Nissan Juke. All these. I know. Cute. Well, that's debatable.
I think it's cute.
That's in the eye of the beholder.
But then some things don't change. So we tested in 2010 a Toyota 4Runner, which is pretty much identical, nearly
to
identical
the one you buy now.
You can buy right now.
Still going.
So at least some things don't change.
Right. You got the venerable 4Runner and then the Kazashi.
Yeah.
So we were also saying, Talking Cars started in the last decade. We weren't sitting in these chairs 10 years ago. It didn't even exist.
We were sitting and talking. We just weren't filming.
We weren't filming. We were talking to our audience.
We were talking amongst ourselves and sometimes
and quite
to
frankly,
ourselves.
Mike Monticello was not here 10 years ago. When did you start?
I started in 2016, so I've been here 4 years. And it's been...
well, we're glad to have you. Are you glad to be here?
Yeah. No, I'm very glad to be here.
I don't think he's allowed to answer anything different.
I'm from the Northeast, so I spent, the first huge part of my 20 years in the industry out in Southern California. And so coming back here, it was nice to get back home, but it's also nice to see how Consumer Reports does things, differently than other publications.
Yeah.
There's a few things that I think are really important that we do, such as buying all of our own test cars. That's a key thing that we're different from, pretty much everyone else. Means that our test cars, couldn't potentially be, prepped or whatever by the manufacturer. Not that hopefully they would ever do that, but we also, another thing that I really love is we buy the trim of the car that most people buy. So a lot of publications, when they're given these cars to test by the manufacturer, it's going to be usually a top level trim. So that means they're not evaluating the interior materials and quality that they're going to find in the more mainstream trim, which is what we try and always do. We also, this is a little bit of a bummer in some ways, we don't buy the super expensive niche cars that a lot of places test. We don't do that because they're of not a huge value. Most of our CR members don't buy cars like that. So it's, as much fun as it would be to test a Ferrari. And
you don't think a lot of people are like, I think I want to get a Ferrari, but I want to see what Consumer Reports says about
exactly.
it first.
They're coming to us.
That's going to, it's going to be reliable. That's what I'm really looking for in a Ferrari. Maybe not. Maybe
not. Yeah, but I also love how detailed some of our testing is, really all of our testing. I mean, just how we have this super detailed evaluation of controls, very in-depth evaluation of fit and finish, and then all these unique things, like child seat fitment that you're part of, and also headlights. Those are unique things within this industry.
So that's what strikes me. Like, we do the big stuff. We do the accels and the brakes and the handling and all of that. But what I think, to me, Consumer Reports get a little more into is that day-to-day livability. Stuff that you have to, headlights and controls that...
Child seat fitment.
Yes, all that stuff that strikes you day to day.
Right, I mean, you see a lot of people, they get in the car and they drive it around the Nürburgring or something, and they get kind of like one taste of this vehicle. But every vehicle that we test here, it's a long-term test, and we're living with these cars. And, it's some of the stuff like, the interface in it, pairing your phone with it. Is it playing the right song? Is it easy to deal with that? And sometimes it's the unexpected because, I mean, we're living with these cars. I'm putting my kids in the cars and all these things. And actually, I mean, it reminds me of...
You're putting your kids...
Well, it's funny because within this decade, we've seen a lot of, all these cars now have those if you get in the trunk, there's this latch in there
like
that goes in the emergency handling that gets
Yeah.
a kid out of the trunk. Right. And, when my kids were younger, they saw this and they were like, well, what is that, Dad? What is that? And I explained, well, in case you're getting the trunk, you could get out. And my older son's like, well, can I try it? Can you put me in the trunk and close it? And I said, of course, no.
Good father.
Why would we do that?
You should not do that. And, my older son kind of talked to me and he was like, well,
He's
what
very smart.
Well, what if I got in there? I want to know, make sure I could do it, right? So, he made a point. So I put him in the trunk begrudgingly. I stood there waiting and he opened it up. And then my younger son, Alex, who was 4 at the time, said, me too. I want to try it. Which, of course, I said no. But, of course, he was a pretty good negotiator, too. Put him in the trunk, closed it. He didn't open up the trunk. I hear boom, 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 boom. Dad.
Yeah.
And I opened the trunk, and the handle broke off in his hand.
Really?
So,
wow.
And he wasn't like a real buff
right.
four-year-old, but I mean, it snapped right off.
Right.
And this was
two uses, right?
Yeah. So it was a Toyota. It was a Camry.
Yeah.
And it was the same piece that was in the Lexus ES, and we talked to Toyota, and they wound up recalling about 700,000 vehicles, and they
because of Alex.
Because of Alex
Fisher.
because of my kid, and they wound up replacing them with ones that weren't as brittle.
Right.
But it's like, again, I mean, it's kind of a long tail kind of thing, but it's like, without just living with it and having your kids in it, you're not going to find these kinds of things out.
Right.
Yep.
My kids are funny. When they were younger, again, put that in the logbook, Mom. They used to say, put that in the logbook.
Right. Sure. Yeah. Each one of these cars, we have logbooks. We're taking all these notes. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite? Jake's got that memory. Do you have like a favorite innovation or change, either in the cars or in testing that strikes you in the decade?
For a favorite one, I actually really like automatic high beams. So if people don't know
what
people don't know what those are, that's when if the car has it, first of all, they've been available for a little while, but they're becoming much more commonplace. They're not just available on luxury cars anymore. They're available on all kinds of cars. And basically, if you set it to automatic high beams, it will switch back and forth between high beams and low beams depending on traffic and other situations. It'll also switch to low beams when it comes to a stop sign and intersection. And I just love the convenience of that. And I know you've talked about this before, certainly written in stories, how important it is, the seeing distance of high beams versus low beams.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to forget to switch back to high beams sometimes. And then you're not having the safety of those high beams.
Right.
So,
and there's real data that say people don't.
Right,
as
and
often as they should.
It's especially helpful in more rural areas where we are here. It's not as helpful maybe in cities because it's going to be constantly switching back and forth between high and low beams. I mean, so in a way, it's sort of a more simple system. But for me, the convenience of not having to keep
I agree.
Because I hate it. Actually, I hate myself when I forget to turn the high beams back off and I blind someone.
We hate you too for it.
But these systems are really good about that, and it takes that away from having to do that.
I totally agree. I mean, I wind up using my high beams way more than I normally would because of those systems. Simple and works really good. One of the things that I think for me that I really, really like is, look, navigation systems have become kind of like, really, really just important. Everyone's using them. And, I think CarPlay and Android Auto, and now where you could kind of use your favorite nav system and not just the one that's on your car and not, it used to be, and sometimes it's lowest, you have to spend $2,000 extra, to your car to get the nav system that's built in that doesn't get really updated as much. Now you just basically plug in your phone, and now you could use your favorite nav system. I like using Waze, and I love that I can use my Waze on the big screen out there. Like, again, not a huge, giant innovation changing the world, but wow, really, really is nice.
I can't remember the last time I punched in a actual address in a car's navigation system. I have been using my phone now for years. It's just easier, and especially with, like you said, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, just makes it even easier.
Yeah.
And familiar.
Oh, because it's your phone.
Yes,
because now your phone's up on the screen.
To it. Right. Yeah, you're not like my dad who says, "Do you need me to get the Garmin?" And I said, "No, Dad, we're good. We're good." Yeah. Oddly, mine is similar to yours, but I would make it even a little more broad. I would say connectivity in general. So just Bluetooth. Just that ability, I go back, I went to a Senate hearing before this past decade, and the whole gist of this, we were sitting with senators and all the cell phone makers, Samsung, and they were all there and saying, the senators were saying nobody should be using their phones in the car.
Yeah.
And we, it's like, what do you mean? And I think you said at the time, people are going to use their phones in the car. How do we make them use them safely?
Right.
Yeah.
And that connectivity. So it's important because every one of our picks is a safety benefit.
Yep.
But it's also a true pleasure. Like I think yesterday I was at our headquarters in Yonkers and I had a long trip back.
Right.
Your playlist, you get to do your music, your playlist.
Yeah.
It makes that connectivity makes the whole driving experience safer and nicer.
But I think the point is, which is really good, is that when you create a convenience feature or a safety feature that people want to use, and it's actually easier to do the right thing, that's the goal when it comes to this type of innovation. It's like, let's go create something that makes it easier to do the right thing than the wrong thing.
Put the cell phone down and deal with your phone call through the Bluetooth, right?
Right.
Yeah.
For sure.
So when we were talking important and safety and better. So for me, the connectivity, adding to it, it's not only my favorite, but to me it's the most important. One of the most important in terms of making everyone safer by, like you say, getting that phone out of your hand. Did you have a different one? You said Auto High Beam's favorite.
Right.
Anything you think is important?
Yeah,
also?
for me, the one that I picked was the most important was backup cameras. Which backup cameras, again, have been around for a while, but they weren't mandated to be in all cars until 2018 when NHTSA, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, said that all new cars in 2018 and forwards have to have backup cameras. And, it's funny, we're lucky because we get to drive all these new cars. So we've been, getting in cars for years now that pretty much every car has a backup camera. But when you get into a car that's even a few years old, that doesn't have a backup camera and you put it in reverse, it feels very weird for us that are so used to that. And so I really think they're so helpful. Again, you still have to turn your head. You don't want to rely solely on that backup camera, but to be able to see, what is directly behind you, and especially with these cars these days, seem to have larger and larger roof pillars for safety, but it also makes them a little harder to see out of. So when you can have something like a backup camera,
well, it's not just backup cameras. I mean, it's also, they just keep on developing too. It's again, there's so much innovation around it. Now we see often these cameras where you kind of that top view of the vehicle, so you could see where you are in your parking spot. We've got these little path indicators that show you where you're going, and even more importantly, rear cross traffic warning, which the situation is you're backing out of a parking spot, you got two SUVs next to you, and you can't see someone who's going to be in your spot soon. Now we've got indicators and even ones that automatically stop for you.
It's a fantastic system.
They just keep on getting better.
And the unintended benefit, everybody's now got the screen.
Right.
Because you got to have the screen to have the backup camera.
Right.
So now you get your Android Auto and everything's right there and integrated with the screen.
Oh, so you mean this sort of in a way forced the manufacturers to put big screens in every car.
Right. Yeah. And those screens became a benefit in other areas
usually benefits. Sometimes
sometimes
that's another story.
That's another control
another
story.
episode.
Kelly's not here today.
There's that. Yeah, for me, I think it's got to be automatic emergency braking and in particular, the ones that now have pedestrian detection. So, we've seen just in terms of traffic fatalities that the trend is they're actually increasing because of pedestrian deaths. Whether or not it's because people are on their phones or the pedestrians on their phones, regardless, there is a technology out there that can make a car automatically stop or warn the driver when they see a pedestrian. But it's like that has a potential of really saving a lot of people.
Right, and the good thing, as these 2020 models are coming out, we're seeing it more and more as not just optional, but standard equipment.
From certain automakers.
From certain automakers, right. Not everybody, but we're certainly a trend of it being more available for consumers. All right, so we talked about innovations, importance, favorites. 2010 to 2020, we've probably driven amongst us hundreds of cars.
Oh, yeah.
A favorite? Does one vehicle in the last decade stick out for you?
So for me, I'm going to go, my favorite car that I drove from the last decade was the 2014 to 2019 Chevrolet Corvette, internally known as the C7.
Yep.
So when that came out in 2014, obviously the Corvette itself has been around for a long, long time, but when they redesigned it with the C7 in 2014, it was such a step up from the previous Corvette, especially in terms of interior quality. And they finally had actually comfortable seats, which had been, they've been kind of just didn't have very good support. So, the car was, this really good sports car, but it had terrible seats and not a very good quality interior. Redesigned it in 2014. Now they improved the quality and the interior, but it still was super fast. And it still lived up to its, performance bargain. This is a car that you could get for under $60,000 that did 0 to 60 in our testing of 4.3 seconds. 455 horsepower, 6.2 liter V8. The car, and it sounds amazing.
That's what I was going to say. When we do Excels, it's like,
oh my gosh. And it's the kind of car that you can get in and it makes every drive fun. And they also had some things, you could get an optional, this magnetic ride control suspension, which means now, if you set it to soft, well, the car's not going to beat you up like Corvettes had in the past, and so you can switch it back and forth between.
But it has sport mode too.
It has a sport mode, so it can be, you can use it on. I took one to a track day. It was fantastic, so there was just so many good things. You could get a Z06 or a ZR1. There was more higher performance versions, but you didn't need it. This thing was so good as it was that not that it was perfect. There were some reliability issues with it over the years. It kind of went back and forth.
Right.
But
that's your favorite.
In terms of just what a step forward for that car, which is funny because now there's a brand new mid-engine Corvette that is coming out. But for me, that car was just so fun to drive.
And easy to drive. That's the thing I remember. Like you say, creature comforts, but it was easy to drive. So many sporty cars are, a stiff clutch or whatever, or punishing ride.
Right.
It didn't do that. It was a great car. How about you, Jake?
Favorite? So I think in the last decade, the most significant vehicle has got to be the Tesla Model S.
Right.
That was a game changer. We changed what we thought about electric cars. We changed what we thought about how far you can go in an electric car.
Limitations of
electric car, range. where you could actually drive across the country. I mean, there was a lot of firsts, really. But I mean, when it comes to the favorite, and for me, it was actually when we tested the performance version of it. At the time, it was the P85D that we got. It was the first time they did the dual motor and the performance version. And, you talk about Corvette, it was like, tons of horsepower and, a two-seater and all these things. This P85D that we tested, just in terms of acceleration, just destroyed that car. I mean, destroyed the car
hurtful,
in terms of acceleration, and did it in such a nonchalant way. Whereas that Corvette was like, you could feel like the earth shake, right? I mean, it sounds like a airplane taking off. This thing just did it silently. You could do it all day long without smelling clutch or anything like that. And it got to the point where the acceleration, and we did a really fun video and test where we were actually comparing it to the Hellcat. And it was just amazing how just off the line, just nothing was close in terms of the amount of G's that this thing pulls.
It was roller coaster G's.
It was roller coaster. It was like,
it was.
I mean, it was almost to the point where like, I'm going to start blacking. And now they've gotten even faster from there. But to me, it's just like amazing. That was like, you get into it and it's like nothing else on earth, nothing else that we've ever experienced. And that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and I mean, Tesla has changed the market.
Totally.
If you think about the fact that they basically forced the mainstream manufacturers to come out with electric cars that have actual reasonable range, you have to be 200 plus miles of range because of Tesla. And so we're seeing all these new electric cars because Tesla was the first to do this.
And luxury electric cars. Like we use the term the Tesla fighters. They're coming.
It completely changed what you thought about electric cars.
Game changers.
It wasn't like, okay, let's find the cheapest car in our inventory and like pull out the engine and throw in some batteries and make it go 60 miles. Like those days are really gone.
So my pick was
Kia Sorento.
No, I know you were going to say. I'm not saying
Ford
Kia Sorento. Ford Flex.
Really?
So this is a car that pretty much lived and died in this past decade. It was introduced in 2009 and went away in 2019. I mean, it was the decade. And that car, I knew you were going to laugh at me. It checked so many boxes for me in terms of, it was. I just see what I did
hilarious.
There. Totally unintentional. But great powertrain, great drivability, one of the roomiest, and it made me think about how your life changes, how your filters of car changes. When we tested that first, and I think 2009, when it came out, I was putting child seats in it. I was thinking, this is so easy to put child seats in. And now, fast forward those 10 years, and I have a 5'10", 175-pound group of boys that I have to, take to school every day. That car would still suit me. That rear seat was awesome. Tons of cargo. It checked my kind of retro wagon thing. I loved that car.
Yeah, it was so practical.
It was so practical.
And with the EcoBoost V6, it just really made it. It really changed things.
It was a nice car. And you look at, the reliability was not always stellar on it. They kind of got it together in the last few years of its life. But owner satisfaction on that car was good. People liked it if they could get over the styling.
So you know what? I find it funny how close our picks were.
Yeah, they were.
Really, very similar.
Different personalities. So that was, I'm going to miss the Flex. I really am.
We'll have a moment for the Ford Flex.
We will. Moment of silence. So wrap up the decade. 2020 arrives. Here we are. What is your vision for the next decade? Be it, what do you see as the most important things that
start with the
could
visionary
happen?
over there.
All right, I'm going to start with the visionary.
Yeah, well, I'm going to kind of go counter to popular opinion, and I'm not going to me, it's not self-driving cars. It's not, what I think what we're going to finally start seeing is augmented reality in the automotive space. I think that is it's a long time coming. And just for people, what augmented reality is. I mean, people are familiar with virtual reality. You put the goggles on and you pretend you're in a different world. Augmented reality is where you see the real stuff, but then there's additional information upon it. Think Terminator, whatnot. And I know, Apple's talking about having glasses that do this, and some other companies have this. But if you're in a car and you got this big windscreen, it's just waiting to be able to use that. I mean, think about I'm driving along, I got a nav system down here. Why not actually point out the street that I want to go to? What about safety? Rather than having a little alert, there's a pedestrian in front of me, why not highlight that pedestrian somehow to me as I'm driving in the dark, whether or not it's through my lights or through the windshield or something. So I just think there's a huge opportunity here to use your windshield and your headlights to actually help you learn about the world around you and help you drive.
Do you mean like a much more advanced version of head-up displays? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, imagine your entire windshield was now a data screen that could go tell you about things, that point out things to you, tell you which way to go.
The Jetsons. Oop, I'm dating myself.
Yeah, you are.
We're getting there.
Yeah, that's usual for you.
Second time I've had to hit you.
So for me, it's not so much about what I think is going to happen. I'm thinking more about what I would like to have happen, which is that, you know, with prevalence of hybrids and electric cars, what I would like to see in the next decade is that we still have fun to drive cars. Yeah. Now, I know that, you know, electric cars can be fun to drive. I mean, there's certain aspects like the acceleration of the Teslas in particular are really exciting. But I still hope there's cars like, you know, the 2020 Corvette that, you know, I haven't driven yet, but you guys have, and it's super fun to drive. You know, the Supra that we just finished testing. I hope cars like that, and cars like, even like the Toyota 86 and Subaru BRZ. These are fun little cars with manual transmissions that are super fun to drive. And, you know, there's a whole bunch of cars like that I hope will still be here. And this Honda Civic Type R, Civic Si, even the Civic Sport, which is actually a really fun car.
You want driver's cars.
I want driver's cars.
I would distill it to one little piece that I really desperately hope sticks around. It's the manual transmission.
Yeah.
Yes. That's kind of where I was going with that.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's just, you know, and done really well. And for me, I mean, you talk about Corvette. For me, it's not the big, powerful cars. It's the ones with the engines that rev to 8,000 RPM that you got to wind them up in order to get that power.
Which we've kind of gone away from.
Which we've kind of gone away from. Even the Civic, you know, which has gone, Civic Si, which is a turbo, you know, so it's got a lot of low-end grunt. But it's like those kinds of like high-revving, easy to shift. I mean, Miata.
Yeah,
I mean,
I knew you were going. I knew where he was.
Right. Or Honda S2000. You know.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, I hope that the cars that we have that are like that stick around, and that maybe there'll be some more interesting ones that are relatively, you know, inexpensive that everyone can buy and still have manual transmissions.
Right. And still drive. So my pick was kind of on the self-driving side, but a little nuance to it. In that, I want the driver assist, partially automated, whatever. I want that technology to develop, but not for the executive so he can sit back and answer emails on his way to work. I want to see that technology developed for good. And I think of people with disabilities, for example. You know, my dear, dear friend has MS, and she has to call a bus to take her to. If she could go and summon a car and do it on her own and keep her independence, and I think there's societal benefits we can reap from self-driving cars, if that's the right term, in efficiencies. You know, say some self-driving deliveries happened in the middle of the night when most of us are sleeping, and eased congestion and, you know, emissions and fuel, and helped people with disabilities. Like, I want to see that technology. Now, ultimately, that has to be paid for some way, that research and development of that technology. And maybe that is consumers buying them, but I want to see that for good, for societal good. Yeah. So that was kind of my
not just for getting to work while you're sleeping in your car.
Correct. But used in a way that's much more beneficial to humans. So so that's great. So as always, we thank you all for watching. Questions, we didn't do any in this episode, but always keep them coming. TalkingCars@iCloud.com. We wish you a super happy, healthy, driving new year in 2020, and we'll see you next time.
I feel like your shirt's like one of those magic eye things.
That's what I was saying.
You know what I mean? Like you could see an image of like a car.
Now you're going to be looking at it the whole time instead of me.